Jenna, thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Can you just tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into starting businesses?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Jenna Ackerley. I started my first business when I was 24. I was living overseas in Mallorca, working for a tour operator, and I decided to start a recruitment business, recruiting seasonal workers. That was my first taste of business. I ran that for a couple of years, scaled it, and then sold it. Not for much money, but sort of tied in with desire to come home. So moved back to Suffolk, worked in various leadership roles and sales roles for a few years whilst I was sort of trying to find my next business opportunity. And then I started Events Under Canvas, which is the business I now run and own, which has been going for 12 years, which is a wedding marquee, festival marquee hire business where we build outdoor tented venues for parties, weddings, and festivals.
Amazing. So, what did you study at university? Let's go back a bit. What did you study
So
during
I
that
didn't
period?
go to uni initially. So I did my A levels. I grew up in Felixstowe. I went to Orwell High School, which is now Felixstowe Academy, and I did my A levels there. But I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life at that point. So I didn't feel like going to university was right for me. So
Sure.
age 18, just got a job and started working in sales initially. But I had a hankering to go traveling. So aged 20, I went off to be a holiday rep initially, working for a tour operator, and I ended up being a manager for them. And then later in life, when I was in my 30s, I decided to do an open university degree in leadership and management at that point, which I
Okay,
finished.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, really. I'm not sure, knowing what I know now, whether I would have even done that actually. But I was in a job at the time at Ipswich Hospital doing a leadership role that required really for me to get onto the board and get senior roles. I needed to have a degree or a master's, and so I felt like because that was on the path I was on, I should do it. But then in the middle of doing my degree, I actually started my business and realized I didn't need to, but I sort of wanted to see it through anyway, and I did, and I'm glad I
Yeah.
did. Good
Yeah.
process.
Sure.
I sort of have a belief you should only really go to uni if it's because if you know why, like if there's something you need, whether that's you're training to be a doctor, a lawyer, a pilot. There's a job that you want that requires a degree, because otherwise it can become like a stopgap, which isn't a bad thing, but
Yeah.
actually you can end up coming out with a load of debt.
I
No
definitely agree. Yeah.
more than you were, and then people that leave school at 18 and maybe start getting work experience end up with a bit of a head start at times.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Because I didn't go to uni because I was like, I don't want to spend. I don't know how many grand it is now, but it's a lot of much money to do a degree. I'm not really sure whether I want to do, and then I'll be in the same position at the end of 3 years as I would
Yeah,
be now. So that
exactly.
was my. Have you always known that you've had like an entrepreneurial spark?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I suppose I didn't recognize it as entrepreneurial when I was younger. I've probably always been quite creative and a real problem solver and like building things. But I guess I was probably quite lost when I was young. I probably, until I started my business Events Under Canvas, I didn't really know what I was doing. I knew I was clever. I knew I had capabilities, but I didn't really know where to direct them. So I probably felt a little bit lost, really, and was sort of floating along waiting to see what was going to happen. I can now see, looking back, that that was exactly what I was supposed to do because those
Yeah,
jobs did completely tied in to the business I ultimately set up and ran. But I employ a lot of young people. Actually, we employ about 60 young people, uni students and A level students every summer in my business. And I really feel for them because people feel so much pressure to know what they want to do with their life. And
yeah,
I think actually we should live in a society and have an education system that takes that pressure off and just lets people find their own way and their own pace.
sure. So take us back to the very start of events under Canvas. When did you first get the idea for that?
Yeah, it was a coincidence and luck that I was on maternity leave with my son. And so my son was 3 months old. I went to my cousin's wedding and she booked these teepees for her wedding. Um, and I was struggling a bit on maternity leave, but I was just struggling with motherhood, had baby blues or whatever you call it, and was suddenly saw these teepees, and it was like the light bulb moment I needed to think, wow, okay, this is a business I could run. And because I had another 9 months maternity leave from my job, I sort of didn't need to take that big jump of quitting a job to start it because I was able just to arrange some childcare for my son and give it a go and see whether I could make a business work out of it. So there wasn't that big pressure point of making a
Yeah,
decision. So I sort of called the people that made the teepees to get some advice. And thankfully the guy that sold them had run a hire business himself. So he became a bit of a mentor informally, advising me on what I'd need, helped me understand how I would go about purchasing and building these things. started pulling together some crew that would help me build them. Um, and just started, created a Facebook page, started talking to someone about building me a website, started putting the feelers out there. There was no one in this region in East Anglia that was hiring out TPs at that point. So it just felt like the right opportunity to go for it.
Yeah, okay. So step two, I imagine that was actually acquiring your first TP. Is that right?
Well, it's really funny actually. So interestingly not, I thought so. So I sort of did all my numbers, did a quick Excel spreadsheet. Nothing formal, didn't talk to any business advisors, but I just got my head into a spreadsheet thinking, right, how much do people charge for these things? How much do I need to buy them? Sort of ran my numbers and sort of concluded I probably needed to find about 60 grand in order to start the business. And I had 30, I had access to 30 grand myself. And
Yeah.
actually, when I started my business, I was starting with another guy. So there was a builder chap I knew who was a mate who was up for starting it with me. And actually, between us, we worked out we could find 30 grand each. Now, actually, we didn't find it. We just knew we could. And we started, like, I put a Facebook page up and I suddenly got my first booking. So a lady called me from this Facebook page and said, I want to book teepees for my wedding next year. And the way my business model works is people pay a 25% deposit when they book and they pay their balance before their wedding the following
Yeah.
year. So suddenly I had a woman giving me a couple of grand, even though at that point I didn't actually have anything. I just had my word that I would give her one. And so I sort of realized that I could start this business without necessarily having the tent or the money to buy the tent. But I trusted myself and I'm responsible. So obviously I wasn't blagging anybody. But it was like I knew I needed this TP by the next June when her wedding was. So I thought, well, this is okay because I've now got 8 months in order to buy it. So, and
Yeah.
then, so I sort of followed. It's only in hindsight I can see how this happened. But then I sort of carried on raising the money and working out how to buy the tents. But suddenly all these bookings started flowing in. And so the bank balance started going up. So as it turned out,
Amazing.
we
Yeah.
didn't need as much money as we thought we did. Um, but you don't know that at time. So it was just really, it was much more about marketing. It was more about
Yeah.
putting ourselves
Yeah.
out there, letting people know what we're doing, having the right attitude towards it, having a really can do approach. And it quickly sped up after that because I made a call to Jimmy's Farm, who had this Christmas event on every year, and said, I'm now hiring teepees. Do you want to swap out your frame marquee for a teepee? And they did. And that was in like 6 weeks' time. So suddenly it was like, okay, God, we need a teepee now. So
Amazing.
so
Yeah.
actually what I did is a bit of that sort of Toyota just in time model of actually I just got in the teepees when I needed them for events rather than getting all my ducks in a row to start with and then starting to market. And that's probably the biggest
Yeah.
advice I've ever heard from anyone that's actually started a business versus people that talk about it is
Yeah.
you don't
Definitely.
need
Yeah.
don't need all your ducks in a row. You just need to work out what one step you can do that day. And then you just take each step as it comes. And you don't need to know everything. You sort of learn as you go, really.
Yeah. I like that. Just actually starting. Don't just talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think so
Yeah.
many people get crippled by, oh my God, I need to have my company registered. I need to have a business bank account. I need to have staff. I need to have contracts. I need to, there's too much to know to start a
Yeah.
business.
I wonder, yeah. At the start, I feel like, I guess you just don't really know what to do. And the only way to know what to do is to just, like you said, get a client. And then you have to work it out. You've got no other choice.
And there's the other side to that is you have to also back yourself and trust that you're going to see it through. So, I meet a lot of people that are blaggers that
Yeah.
promise people things and then forgive themselves if they let them down. And I think there's two folds to it. You've got to be willing to jump in, not knowing how you're going to get there, but also you've got to know that the moment you assure someone of something,
Sure.
you're going to
Yeah.
see it through.
You
So
got to
you want
deliver.
someone with a job, they get a job. You promise someone you're showing up at a particular time, that's what you do. So it's sort of a mixture of integrity and
Yeah.
balls. Yes,
Sticking to your word. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
but sort of trusting that you don't need to know exactly how you're going to do it. So with this lady on the phone, when she rang me, she said, I really want TPs. I'm like, okay, well, I can do that for you. And I believed in that. She believed me. So therefore, she gave me her money. And I
Yeah.
treated her money with the utmost of respect because it was the first ever money I've received. And
Yeah.
I treated that as sacred. It's all right. Okay, I'm going to see this through. And
Yeah.
that's sort of how it happened. And we did the same. We contacted Latitude, and suddenly they wanted to book with us because they were bringing in teepees from outside the area. We got the Isle
Amazing.
of Wight Festival, which is ridiculous for our first year because that's on
Yeah.
an island.
Incredible.
To
Yeah.
work how to get across ferries. But I've sort of always had a real can-do attitude of if someone asks me to do
Yeah.
something, my default answer is yes, unless there's a really strong reason to say no. So it's sort
Yeah.
of like always approaching anything with, okay, well, let's see how we could do this, and then working back from that point.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you can see it with your attitude to doing this. You're like, instantly yes. So correct me if I'm wrong, but in your first year, did you do it was 56 events, wasn't it?
Like, yeah. Yeah,
So
so our
how did
target, sorry, go on.
sorry, how did you like market yourself that well to get that many clients in your
Yeah,
first year? Because that's an incredible amount.
I don't really know the answer to that because my target was 12. So when I'd sort
Oh,
of run
really?
numbers, I thought, okay, well, let's buy three teepees. These teepees like link together to allow you to do bigger spaces. And I concluded I really needed three of these things to be able to do decent sized weddings. So that's what my numbers were based on, buying three and also in doing 12 of them. And I thought, right, there's 20 weeks of the summer. I can't believe I'm going to be having things out every weekend of that. Let's sort of go for 12. And it was all a bit finger in the air. Um, but I think just bringing the right energy, putting ourselves out there and following through, it just snowballed. And so so Isle of Wight Festival, for example, I offered them three, they wanted five. So suddenly I'm like,
Amazing.
okay, we're
Yeah.
buying five teepees then. And then suddenly we've got five teepees. That means if someone's booked three teepees for one weekend, I've still got two more I can sell on that same weekend. So
Yeah.
it was sort of keeping my knees loose and staying open minded and not having any fixed view on anything. So just, yeah, going with the flow, I guess, the
Yeah.
thinking, well, so having that undercurrent of making sure the numbers are right, making sure the pricing is right, but also having a real open-minded approach to
Yeah.
that first customer who rang me. Because at this point I didn't even have any photos of my teepees because I didn't own any. But what I said to her was, look, I'll give you 5% off if you let me have all your wedding pictures. So I knew that
Yeah.
next suddenly I was going to have a load of photos. She obviously bit my hand off. She was having photos anyway. So it was just this sort of all the jobs we
And
got
they
with
it just
cancelled.
spirals. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
What about your social media sort of presence? Were you really focused on that?
Not massively to start with. I sort of always did it. Now, I mean, when I first started the business, I did it all. So I created my Google AdWords account. I was logging into Google Analytics to see who was on the website. I used to sit there in the evening getting excited if I saw that one person popped up on my
Yeah.
website. And yeah, so again, it was all very sort of instinct led, heart led. It was just trying to feel around and try and work out what was right and going with my instinct rather than overthinking it too much.
Sure.
Can you walk us through the process of creating an event? So from getting that booking, everything that leads up to the actual day.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're really just one supplier in a day, so I guess that's probably more. But I've also been married, so I can talk about it from an overall point of view. But from our point in it, so what Events Under Canvas does, so if a customer pays us a deposit and says, right, we want you to do our wedding, then typically we'll have done a site visit, so we'll have showed up to their garden, we'll have measured up, we'll have talked about what they want, shown them our brochure, and talked them through. So we've got these lovely brochures that
Oh, they're
we've
nice. Yeah.
designed with loads of imagery and stuff. Obviously didn't have this at the beginning, but so yeah, find out exactly what someone wants, design their space for them, create a quote for them, which if they agree to, they pay their deposit. Um, and then a lot of it is just then leaving them to it to book their florist and their bands and plan their caterers and everything like that. And then we probably kick in seriously 12 weeks before their wedding, where we would then be discussing what day we're going to show up to build their event. We'll start scheduling crew. So we always we've got about 20 staff that work for us all year round now, but we've got about another 60 that come in and just work the summer season, which is when we're busy, which are the people that build the tents, under the direction of our supervisors. So we'll schedule those staff, we'll work out what day we're going, we'll make sure the vehicles, we know which vehicles are going, and we'll plan all the stock. We've got a big stock management system that we'll manage all that with. And then probably 3 or 4 days before that wedding, our lads will show up. Maybe for an average wedding, the customer might be spending 8 grand with us. And we'll show up on the Wednesday, probably with 6 guys that will be there for the whole day. They'll lay the matting, they'll build the frames, they'll put all the canvases on top. Then they'll bring in all the furniture. So we do the lighting, the staging, the dance floors, tables, chairs, all that stuff. So we'll literally build all that in one day. We'll sign it all off with the customer, make sure they're completely happy, and then we disappear. So typically, we're not around for any of these weddings unless there's an on-call problem, which is quite rare. The wedding then happens. We might see the images on social media and stuff that someone's posted, the photographer posted, and then we go back on the Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, and we dismantle it all, bring it back to base, clean it, and then typically go and build it somewhere else the next weekend. So It's sort of,
Okay.
we're more like
Yeah.
a removals company, really. Then that's probably the most similar we are. It's a bit more, glamorous, but it's pretty similar,
Yeah.
really. It's
Yeah.
loading, unloading vehicles every day.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Do you have a warehouse that stores all these
Yeah, yeah.
teepees and
So when we first started, we basically we bought this kit, and initially we stored it in my business partner's garden. So we
yeah.
literally stored it at his. I bought my business partner out basically, so we started it together, and I bought him out after about 18 months. But which was the right thing for both of us, and it was
Yeah.
amicable. But basically in that first season, we managed to get an empty warehouse at our local mushroom farm, so Capel Mushrooms, which is down the road from us,
Okay.
an empty warehouse, and we said, "Can we rent it off you to store our kit?" So it was there for probably about a year. Then we started renting a bigger barn on a farm, and then we started putting containers there because we'd outgrown it. Because every year the demand was growing, so we did 56 events in our first year with those 5 TPs. By year 2, we did 120 events, and we had
Blimey.
8. It was just growing. So now we've got 25 TPs, 9 sailcloth tents, and 6 stretch tents, and we do about
Incredible.
400 events per season now.
Absolutely incredible.
So basically, every year we were buying more stock in order to meet the demand of
Yeah.
what we were doing. And actually, in 2017, a farm came available to buy in Cape of St Mary, which I bought, and that's now our HQ. So we've basically got our own
That's cool.
now, of which
Yeah.
it was a bit of a derelict old farm, and at that point I had a great team running the business and doing all the day-to-day stuff, so I could free myself up a bit to do the commercial property side. So we built an office for it. Had been in my home until that point. All the staff had been coming into my house. Basically built an office. We then created a good office there, and then we've built 3 big warehouses, which is where all our stock is now stored. We've got a big showcase field for when we showcase our stock, and we've got a big yard where we clean everything, and we've got about 17 vehicles parked. But it's, so from that
Incredible.
day one of
Yeah.
literally being in our back garden with a desk
That's
in my,
quite the success story.
it's been a hell of a journey along the way.
Yeah.
do you have a plan for winter?
Yeah, I mean, we've always tried to find a solution for winter, because a lot of our staff would love to work all year round, and we can't give them year round work. So our office team, there's about 9 of us that work in the office, and we're busy all year round because a lot of people are planning their weddings in winter.
Yeah.
And then we keep about 9 guys on as well over the winter who do all the cleaning and sorting and repairs. We build all our tables and chairs and bars and fire pits. So there's always lots of very practical work to do at the yard. And we do some winter events. So we work with the Chestnut Group in this area. They have lots of winter gardens, so they set up teepees for
Yeah.
our spaces at Christmas and stuff. So we do events, but ultimately the market we're in is seasonal. It's like a restaurant with a lovely beer garden. The gardens are always
Yeah.
getting a lot busier in the summer than the winter. So we sort of have to just accept that. The way
Yeah.
we structure it with our year-round lads that actually are our sort of team leaders and supervisors is they do a lot more hours in summer than winter, so they're sort of paid a flat full-time wage all year round, but actually their hours flex, and they typically will work longer weeks in summer and shorter weeks in winter in
Yeah.
order to that a little bit.
Sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a huge advantage of this business the fact that you get sort of repeat customers. You get an event that's needed every year.
Yeah, so we do that. It's definitely not the bulk of it, though. I'd say
Okay.
70% of what we do is one-off, so it's a
Oh,
wedding,
right. Okay.
birthday party, a
Yeah.
60th birthday party. So there's the one-off market, which is entirely really run through Google. So for us, Google is our best friend. Someone
Yeah.
needs stuff thinking that if you're planning a 21st birthday party, you're getting onto Google and you're going marquee for my party near
Yeah.
me or whatever.
Okay.
So we spend quite a lot to make sure people find us that way. And then we do Latitude every year. We do
Yeah. Okay.
Glastonbury every other year. We do lots of things for Soho House. We do lots of things for Chestnut Group. So there is
Yeah.
always things slotting
Well,
in,
yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
not, it's a model where we're sort of starting from scratch each year. There's a decent lead time. So, we've already got a lot of weddings and parties booked for next year.
Yeah.
So we've got a bit of visibility. And pre-COVID, we used to really be able to know exactly where we were at. So I used to make our purchasing decisions in November with real confidence on what the next season was going to look like wise. Since COVID, it's all changed a bit
Well,
because
yeah.
just
Yeah.
the timescale people book has completely changed. It used to be people would book a wedding 12, 18 months before the date of it. Now it's often 6 months before it. So it means we just have to be a bit more nimble and flexible in where we're going. I mean, the good news is we don't commit to our summer staff until Easter, really. So we typically by Easter will know what the season's looking like, and that will help
Yeah.
us work out what staff we need. But yeah, it's being flexible is the secret, and actually trying not to be too fixed with what's going to happen. So, we've had a couple of
Yeah.
years, the last couple of years of shrinking a bit and having to deal with that and work out what that looks like for the team.
How
That's
did
really,
COVID affect you
yeah, that's really interesting about COVID.
overall?
Like what
Yeah,
changes?
I mean, it
'Cause-
was tough at the time. I was married. I'm divorced now, but actually, I was married to a pilot, so it was really hard because I was running a wedding and events business. He was a commercial airline pilot, and when Boris made that speech, it was like, oh my goodness, we're both unemployed and losing our business. Yeah, so it was really scary. But actually, thankfully, the furlough came out. The furlough completely saved my business and my ex-husband's job in that regard because suddenly there was, you know we basically had 125 weddings that were cancelled overnight with that. So weddings that were
Crazy.
booked with their deposits paid in that March, that suddenly overnight those weddings weren't happening. So it was really tough. And also we didn't have the money in the bank to refund those customers. The money, the deposits they'd paid the year before, we'd spent on the tents and the equipment for their weddings. So we
Stressful.
couldn't
Yeah.
we couldn't refund them. So if the government had have said unilaterally, you must refund, then we would have gone bankrupt. But thankfully, what we did, our customers were amazing. And we just said to all our customers, we'll hold your price, we'll hold your deposit, and you can rebook at the same price for any time in the next 2 years. And actually, everyone went for that. So that just meant then it just bumped their bookings to the next year. With the furlough, it meant our payroll was covered. So it didn't matter that we didn't have any money coming in because we had all of our core staff's pay covered. So we didn't make any money. We went from good profits, great growth the year before in 2019 to suddenly just break even. So we didn't make losses and we didn't make any money. But then actually then in 2021 and 22, we had boom time.
Yeah.
A few of my competitors have gone bust. And there was just huge demand after everyone being locked out for all that time to party. And also everyone had loads
Yeah.
of money.
I was going to say that. Did you get on the tail end of COVID? Everyone wants to get out and
it
have
was
events. You're
unbelievable.
like,
Everyone had loads of money because no one had been spending their money. No one had been going on
yeah.
holiday or going out to the pub. So everyone's bank balances had gone up. Everyone was desperate for connection and seeing people. So yeah, we had 21 and 22 was our best ever years because
Yeah.
actually we not only had all the postponed weddings, but also we just had people like you and I that were like, oh my God, let's throw a couple of grand and have a big
Yeah.
old party
Yeah.
with my friends. So yeah, that was incredible. We're sort of now feeling the pinch of that because we had these two big boom years. We didn't know it was a bubble. We thought, okay, this is the new normal. We're this busy now. And
Yeah.
so we scale up, I promote staff, we create, we built another warehouse, we bought a load of new stock. And then in 23 and 24, it actually fell back down again.
Yeah.
Still bigger than we were going into COVID, but actually we're not as big as we were in 22. So again, there's the reverse of that high growth time that we were in pre-COVID of actually navigating shrinkage and how you cope with rising costs and rising minimum wage and less sales coming in. But it's all
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I mean, I guess like whatever the state of the economy, excluding COVID, of course, people always want events. It's not really like people will always have events no matter what's happening. People will always be booking weddings.
So it's,
So that-
I mean, it's one of those, it's a luxury thing. So it's not a commodity, it's not like
Yeah.
your grocery shop. I think I'd probably compare our market to the luxury holiday market.
Yeah.
In the sense of, yeah, of course, there's always going to be a market for people to travel to nice places and do nice things. But actually, in times of uncertainty, is the first thing to go as well.
Oh, is
So
it? Okay.
if people are feeling the pinch, they're like, actually, let's not have that big wedding for 150 of our friends. Let's just go to a registry office and have a little small garden.
Okay. Yeah.
Or, actually, let's not celebrate our 40th this year. Let's do it in a few years when things are a bit better. So I think there's definitely a bit of that. And also what we do, it's like super, super luxury. It's like
Yeah.
beautiful, wowing your neighbours kind of parties.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably a bit of reticence to be showing off money at the moment as well.
Okay. Interesting.
Politics, that it's sort of like, at certain times in the history of events on the canvas, I've seen this whole keeping up with the Joneses mentality of, well, he had a marquee party, I'm going to have a tea party and go all out. And, that idea of one-upmanship. And I don't think that exists at the moment. I think people are being quite sensible and responsible and not too showy with money. And that definitely affects us in our market because we're like the wow factor with what we do. So
Okay.
people are probably maybe more likely to take their friends out for a nice dinner for their birthday rather than throw a huge party in their garden at the moment.
No, that's very interesting. Yeah. I mean, you've worked with some like super high end clients. Can you tell us about how you secured those?
Yeah, I mean, I think it feeds into what I sort of said at the beginning is actually integrity and doing what you say you're going to do. And that sort of builds, so the other side of when I said we've got some repeat bookings and a lot of one-off things, in the middle of that is referrals and recommendations. So if we really look after someone on their wedding and they've had 150 guests come, when those 150 people need something, they're asking that bride who they use, who
Yeah.
they'd recommend.
Okay.
And we get a lot of referrals. And so a lot of the real high end stuff we've done has come through that, So we maybe do a wedding with a brilliant wedding planner. She's really impressed with us. And then she maybe does a more super high level one and she
Oh,
comes back
okay.
to us.
Yeah.
And we got really lucky. We do one every year at the Belfry for Mike Tyndall and Zara Phillips.
Amazing. Yeah.
And that was sort of luck. Someone from the Belfry called us about 5 years ago and said, I want a big tent for Mike Tyndall. And we sort of didn't believe it. We get lots of name droppers telling us that there's these
Yeah.
amazing events happening. And so we quoted it and we acted responsibly, but we didn't really expect it to come off. And then suddenly the booking came in and suddenly I'm showing up for a site visit with them. And it's like, oh my goodness. Okay. And so, but we probably didn't change the way we work because we already had a really good quality way of working. And that we were sort of thinking, well, we're not going to suddenly give these people some kind of super service that we're not already giving everyone else. But we already had enough faith that what we're doing was really good. Thankfully, we delivered on it. We did what we say we were going to do. There's lots of stress involved in big events. The Mike Tyndall one, it's 400 celebrities that go to a charity golf day and then they have a big gala charity ball in our tent.
Sounds great.
So it's,
Yeah.
it's big, big money. I think this year they made 500 grand in the charity auction.
Really?
So it's, so there's just, we quote them exactly the same as we charge everybody else. Whereas
Yeah.
I think what they've experienced is when they say who it is, suddenly people add 20, 50% on the quote, whereas we've got integrity on that. And yeah, we just do what we say we're going to do.
Amazing.
Was
Good-
there
good
ever a
lesson.
moment an event didn't go to plan? And how did you
Yeah.
react to that?
We had probably the toughest time I remember outside of COVID was in summer 22, I think it was, yes. July 2022, we had the most horrific winds across the whole and the south and east of England. So it was a big weather warning. And it's quite rare. Actually, I've been going 12 years and I've never had an event cancelled because of wind before. Obviously, wind is our enemy. When you've got tents, they've all got wind ratings of how much wind they can sustain. And also when we do get wind in summer, normally it's quite in a distinct area and we operate across the whole of the south and east of England. So, as far west as Oxfordshire and all of the south coast. And that particular weekend, we had 22 events on across all of our broad area. And suddenly there was a red weather warning across the whole area. But obviously you can't just cancel 22 weddings.
No.
Because one of those weddings was Ollie Murs. Ollie Murs, the pop
Yeah.
star.
Yeah. It's the first ever concert I ever went to.
Oh, no. So marrying in July 22 on OC Island, which is a private island in Essex. And we had our tents there. And, the health and safety advisor would say, you've just got to cancel all of them. But it's like the reality of that on a Saturday morning. So, so we managed to save all of them. So all of those weddings went ahead. We had people on site holding down states, maybe evacuating for half an hour when it was really dangerous and letting people back in. And it was all pretty horrendous. But one of those weddings, so there was a 2 TP wedding set up where the wind blew the whole thing apart. So about an hour and a half before that couple were due to sit down for their dinner, the entire tent flew away. And that was horrendous for them. It was fine for us. We've got loads of spare stock and we can deal with it all and we're really well insured. But it was just heartbreaking for that couple.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there was they were getting married where there was like a cricket pavilion. It was pretty ugly, but it was a covered space and a building. It was all a little bit Three Little Pigs kind of story because there was a load of people moving tables and chairs from the blown down tents into the cricket pavilion. So when all those guests arrived, they had somewhere to go. But that was proper sleepless night time and really horrendous of worrying about it. When you're in it, you're worrying about everyone's safety. You're balancing, I don't want anyone to get hurt here, but also I don't want to unilaterally cancel all this stuff and suddenly find there's potentially, 2,000 people that aren't doing what they thought they were going to be doing this day because of weather.
Amazing. Yeah. Stressful story.
About it all, but
yeah, I can imagine. I'm feeling all tense of that. If a young person wants to start a business, what sort of advice would you give them? Not necessarily events related, just any business at all.
Yeah, so the first thing I'd say is get a mentor, and I don't mean a paid for one. So one of the first things I did that I didn't mention was when I had this business idea, I reached out on LinkedIn to an old boss of mine, so a guy that had worked for me, who'd started his own business, who always inspired me. And I just sent him a message on LinkedIn and said, "Can I please buy you a coffee? Because I've got a business idea and I just need a sounding board." And he was amazing. For 2 years, he literally used to meet me once every month or so, just talk to me about all my ideas, point me in the right direction to what I needed to know. And actually, when I bought out my business partner after 18 months, he invested and helped me raise the money to buy out my business partner. And he's still a good friend. His wife came on board as well. So I think you don't know what you don't know, and you need to sort of drop the ego and ask for help. So I'd say the first step is just find someone who has started a business. Don't talk to a bank manager or an
Okay.
advisor or someone whose job it is to advise business people. Speak to an actual business person. And in
Yeah.
my experience, every single person I've ever met that's ever started a business is always willing to share their knowledge for
Yeah.
free. So
Yeah.
there's plenty of people doing it and charging for it, and there is a place for that. I'm not against paid for advice, but I'm actually quite against it at the starting moment, because the last thing you should be doing is spending any of your free cash on advice, because
Yeah.
people give it to you for free. So yeah,
Well,
and
there's
it didn't
yeah.
need to be the same industry. The person I went to knew nothing about weddings and tents. He just knew about starting a business, because you can quickly learn via Google about what you're starting the business in, but what you need is that advice on what you need to do and when, and what's important and what isn't, and that sort of
Sure.
discern time.
Okay. Well, what about specifically events under Canvas? If you're to go back to the very start, is there anything you'd do differently?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's probably all about backing myself a bit more and having confidence. It's funny, really. I probably knew that I shouldn't have been in business with my business partner within 3 or 4 months, and probably he did as well. Like we didn't really know each other that well. We started clashing really quickly, but I didn't
Okay.
have enough confidence in myself to run it without him. So I think
Yeah.
I kept mediating and smoothing things through because I was too scared to do it on my own, and probably there's not much practical stuff. I mean, I definitely made mistakes. I underquoted people's stuff. I went too far supporting people. I've probably been pretty soft on certain areas that, knowing what I know now, I would do differently. But I wouldn't want to change any of it, because it's all part of your growth. And the reason I'm where I am now with the knowledge I've got is because of all that failure. So I think don't be afraid
Yeah.
of failure and just go with it. But yeah, it's sort of you only learn to have confidence in yourself in hindsight when you're in it and you're doubting yourself. But that's where mentorship really helps, and having people that will advise you and support you. I had a lot of people at the time that were saying, "Why do you underestimate yourself so much? You've got this, you can do it." But I didn't really believe them, and it took a bit of failure and a bit of time to get there.
Sure. Sure. Have you got any exciting plans for the future of your company? Any big projects coming up?
I mean, I guess the thing at the moment, which is exciting for me, but it's probably all a bit daunting, is I've basically just stepped back a bit. So as of 2 months ago, I've dropped down to working just one day a week. I've promoted my head of ops to general manager, and he's now running my business. I don't.
Amazing.
A lot of people think it's really important to build a company and then exit it and sell it, and actually, that never really resonated with me. I'm really proud of my business. I love the people that are in it. I don't want to mess with it. But I probably reached the conclusion this summer that actually I want to focus on other things. I might want to start some other businesses. And actually, I felt a little bit like my skills aren't suited to events under canvas anymore. And so I just took that bold step, and I'm now working one day a week, basically supporting my general manager to run the show. And it's going really well so far. So I've just enjoyed a
Yeah.
couple of months of the summer with my kids. And then I think I'm probably ready to start thinking about other businesses. So this is well timed. If there's any young people watching this that are looking for either someone to invest or someone to support them, or just advise them for free, I'm always open to. I get really excited about business ideas, and I'm pretty good at discerning what will work and what won't. So yeah, I
Amazing.
like the idea potentially of being an angel investor or just supporting younger people with their ideas to get things off the ground.
Sounds great. Where can people find you on social media and follow your journey?
It's probably LinkedIn, just Jenna Ackerley on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to find me. Or I'm really happy for you guys to share my email address or number with anyone that gets in touch.
Amazing. Okay. What about Suffolk Sound as well? You do stuff. You have a radio show. Is that right?
Yeah, I do. So about 2 years ago, I got invited, a bit like this. I was invited just to talk about my business journey as a guest, and then they decided I might be good as a radio presenter. So they basically trained me up to present my own show, and I host a business show each week where I interview other business leaders. So a bit like you're doing, I'll sort of get people in that have run businesses or are in senior leadership roles and talk to them about their style and things. So it's probably less less directed towards young people. You know, it's just a nice radio station, but just sort of having this weekly slot of a business show. And I really enjoy that. It's really good fun, and get to meet really interesting people.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for talking to us. That's been so useful.
Thank you.
Really good to meet you guys. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Hello, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I mean, what a great guest. Harrison, tell us what you thought about that.
What I did like is the fact that when starting the company, she had to find 60 grand. Now, she realised a little bit further in that when she was booking people, she'd get a deposit and she could use that money to run the events that she was doing. And the fact that you don't necessarily need like 30 grand, 10 grand.
Yeah, you've got to think outside the box to find that money.
You can find other ways of getting that money in order to fund yourself and then grow to, she's gone from 56 events on the first year to over 400 now, which is quite incredible.
I think my biggest takeaway was to run your business with integrity, because that's how she really built her business. And she put 100% into every single event. And obviously, like she said, there are people at these events that then want your service, and suddenly it just spirals if you do every event to the best that you can do it and have integrity. But yeah, an incredible story. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Like, I learned so much. I don't know about you, but I just felt that was incredible. So thank you very much for listening to this episode.